And this is one of the best words in the English language, I have to say. It's one of my favorite words too. It's hello everyone, thank you for joining me again and welcome to any new viewers. This is To The Point English with Ben. I'm Ben. Now, how are you feeling today? No, really, think about that. How are you feeling? Are you feeling happy, sad, tired, bored, excited, scared? We often need to talk about our feelings or even about other people's feelings. And all of those adjectives I've just used are perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with those adjectives. But you know, sometimes it's nice to have more advanced alternatives to those basic adjectives in order to be more expressive and demonstrate a higher level of English, especially if you're taking an exam. So in this video, I'm going to share synonyms for some of the most common adjectives to describe feelings. So I'm going to share 2 synonyms for each adjective. So there will be a more formal option and a more informal option. But what I want you to do while I'm going through this list is, before I give my synonyms, just pause the video and think about any synonyms you can think for the adjective that I give. So you can actively come up with your own adjectives before I give mine. And the first adjective we're looking at today is a very simple, very common adjective, and it's happy. Right? I hope you're all feeling happy today. And the first synonym we're looking at for happy is the more formal alternative, which is elated. Elated. So as this is the more formal alternative, I'm giving a more formal example. You could say slightly more boring example, but the less formal example will be more interesting, I think. So the example for elated is, local residents will be elated if the council builds a new sports centre. Okay, so they'll be very happy. Elated means very happy, but it's used in a slightly more formal contexts. And the informal option is made up, to be made up. So the example, she was made up when she found out that she got an A in her English exam. So she was extremely happy when she found out she got such a good score in her English exam. So that's great, right? She was made up. But again, we wouldn't use made up in a sort of formal essay or any formal writings. It's a much more colloquial expression that we would just use with our friends or in informal situations. And the second adjective, obviously, we're going for the opposite of happy, so it's sad. And the more formal option is disconsolate. Disconsolate. Now, this is quite an extreme adjective. It's more than just sad. It's very sad. In fact, it's so sad that you can't be comforted. There's no way to console a person who is disconsolate. And so the example is, the protagonist of the book was disconsolate, having recently lost his wife. Okay, so I was thinking of perhaps when you're writing a review of a book, in this case, and you're talking about the protagonist, and the protagonist's wife has recently passed away, or had recently passed away in the book. So the protagonist was disconsolate. There was no consoling him, or there was no comforting him. Extremely sad. The more informal option is not so extreme, and that's usually the case with more colloquial or slang terms. And it's down in the dumps. So this is an idiom, but to be down in the dumps. And it means sad, as I said. And the example is, Harry is still down in the dumps after missing the penalty in the World Cup. So you can imagine which Harry I'm referring to here. It's Harry Kane, the English striker. He missed the penalty in the World Cup. And I don't know, but I imagine he's probably still a bit sad about it, so he's down in the dumps. And the next adjective is excited. Are you feeling excited today? Do you have something coming up today? I'm actually filming this on the 6th of January, so it's here in Spain. It's a very special day where children open their presents that the 3 kings brought. So children woke up very excited this morning. But the first synonym I'm giving here, it wouldn't be suitable for that context. It's much too formal. And it's enthused. Enthused. So the example, the company's employees are enthused by the potential pay rise. So in this case, the company's employees have perhaps heard that there is a possibility of receiving a pay rise, an increase in their salary. So they're excited about that. But again, excited is fine. There's nothing wrong with the word excited. But in this context, you have the option of using enthused. So it's a nice alternative. And in the exams, you would get more marks for using this type of vocabulary. A more informal synonym is pumped. Pumped. This is quite a modern adjective. I wouldn't usually use it, to be honest. Younger people than me use this word, but it's very common nowadays in a very colloquial context. I'm pumped about seeing Billie Eilish at the festival this weekend. Okay, so this person is really excited about seeing Billie Eilish at the festival this weekend. They're really looking forward to it. See, Billie Eilish, I know what young people like these days. I like Billie Eilish, actually. I've got all of his albums. Oh, what? Billie Eilish is a woman? Oh, right. Yeah, I knew that. Okay, moving swiftly on to the next one. It's bored. Of course, the opposite of excited is bored, and it's a very common adjective. So here are a couple of more advanced alternatives. Now, I actually found it quite difficult to find a good formal synonym of bored. So the one I found, it can be a synonym in certain contexts, but not always. And it's disinterested. Disinterested. So the example, teachers need to find new ways of connecting with disinterested pupils. Okay, so these disinterested pupils, they're not interested at all, so perhaps they're bored. They're bored of the classes, they're bored of the way of learning. So teachers need to find new ways of connecting with these students, these disinterested students. Okay, the more informal alternative, and we're using the word bored in an idiomatic expression here. It's bored to tears. Bored to tears. You can also say bored to death, which is a little bit more extreme, but bored to tears, so you're so bored that you start crying. Seems exaggerated, but it's quite a common expression to use when you're really bored. Ben's last video bored me to tears. It was quite useful though. I hope that's not true. I hope it didn't bore you to tears, but I do hope you found it useful. But yes, if something's just so boring, it bores you to tears. And the next adjective is angry. Again, it's quite common to get angry, right? We all get angry sometimes, so we need synonyms to express it rather than just repeating, I'm very angry, or he is very angry, she is very angry. So the more formal alternative is irate. Irate. This means very angry, but it's quite formal. In this case, the example I have is actually from a headline in a newspaper. Woman irate when she learns her boyfriend used her toothbrush. So it's really big, important news, right? But I don't know why this was a headline in a newspaper, but the woman irate, extremely angry when she found out that her boyfriend used her toothbrush. Can you imagine that, using somebody else's toothbrush? That's grounds for breaking up, I think. But let's look at the more informal alternative now, an informal synonym. And this is a little bit rude, a little bit vulgar, so if you're sensitive, maybe skip this one. But it's pissed or pissed off. Now, in British English, in my English, we say pissed off. You need the off. In American English, and I think in Australian English, they just say pissed to mean angry. Now, pissed in British English means drunk. So you have to be very careful with this word. If you're in the United States and you say, I'm pissed, you're saying that you're angry. If you're in Britain and you say that you're pissed, then you're saying that you're very drunk. So be careful. It depends where you are in the world. This word has different meanings. I'm so pissed off that you didn't come to my party. So I'm really angry that you didn't come to my party. I'm pissed off. As I said, it's a rude word. It's a swear word. So be careful in which situations you use it. Obviously not in an exam, not at work, not with your boss, not in your class, only with your friends, and in very informal situations. And the next adjective is afraid. Afraid. So what synonyms can you think of for afraid? Well, my first one, the formal one, is petrified. Petrified. So this is, again, it means very afraid, extremely scared or afraid. And my example is, during the pandemic, many people were petrified of taking public transport. So during the pandemic, when everybody was wearing masks and you felt that you were going to catch COVID just by going outside, many people were extremely scared or afraid of taking public transport, so they were petrified. The literal meaning of petrified is just to not be able to move, so you're so scared that you can't move. Obviously, in most situations, that's not the real case. It just means very scared or very afraid. And actually, the informal alternative I have has the same literal meaning, and it's scared stiff. Scared stiff. So to be scared stiff, to be stiff means you're rigid, you can't move. So it's the same idea as petrified, but in a much more informal context. So the example is, I know I have to give the speech, but I'm scared stiff. So this person has to give some kind of speech, maybe at work or at a wedding or wherever, and they're scared stiff. They're really afraid, really scared, really even nervous, but they're scared stiff. They're extremely, you could say petrified, but that's much more formal, so scared stiff is a more colloquial alternative. And the next adjective is surprised. When was the last time you were surprised, and what synonyms can you use? So the more formal option that I have is astounded. Astounded. And again, this example comes from the headline of a newspaper. Astounded woman finds very rare diamond in her garden. So this woman was understandably very surprised, astounded, when she found this very rare diamond in her garden. And I guess she was very happy. I imagine she was elated or made up that she found this diamond in her garden. And the more informal alternative, and this is one of the best words in the English language, I have to say, it's one of my favorite words too, it's flabbergasted. Flabbergasted. So the example is, Sarah was flabbergasted when Rick proposed to her last year. Okay, so Sarah was obviously proposed to by Rick, and obviously this was a huge surprise for Sarah, so she was flabbergasted. It's a really nice word to say, by the way. And the next adjective is tired. We all get tired sometimes, right? And again, tired is a perfectly fine adjective to use, but it's nice to have some alternatives. So my formal alternative is fatigued. Fatigued. And the example is, delivery drivers should be given regular breaks to prevent them from getting fatigued. So there are a lot of delivery drivers around now with Amazon and all these delivery companies, and they work very long hours, but they should be given regular breaks to prevent them from becoming fatigued, to make sure there are no accidents on the roads and that they can do their jobs well. And the informal alternative is actually an example of Cockney rhyming slang. I made a video about Cockney rhyming slang with my dad, who is a Cockney, a few months ago, so I'll put that in the description so you can check it out. But the adjective is cream crackered. Cream crackered. And that's Cockney rhyming slang for knackered. So you have two alternatives here. You could say cream crackered, which is this Cockney rhyming slang. It's extremely informal, extremely British English. And as I said, it just means very tired, really. So the example is, the exam went well, but I was cream crackered by the end. Or you could say, the exam went well, but I was knackered by the end. So it just means very tired. Again, I don't recommend you use that in exams or any formal situation at work or in your class, but it's quite fun and it's perfectly fine to use in informal situations with your friends. Okay, so put your own synonyms in the comments. It will be good to see them. Don't forget to use these adjectives. Use it or lose it. It's very important to actively use the vocabulary you learn. And I'll see you very soon for another video. Bye.